The time to go max long on Bitcoin is when everyone is bearish and calling for lower prices. In today's video, I'll be taking you through what I think could be happening next in this market, as we just had a very strong weekly close. If you enjoy the content, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe. Without further ado, let's jump right into the video. And obviously I have to start off this video with showing some receipts. You can see here that we essentially entered this most recent Bitcoin uptrend at the Pico bottom. You can see here on my Bluffin chart, we got these green arrows, which is exactly where I entered. My average entry price for my most recent position is right around $99,700. We entered last Friday when everyone started capitulating because the price was going lower. But you can see, if we take a look at the Bitcoin chart, this may very well just be another crucial double bottom before Bitcoin makes its next pivot higher. Now, of course, we'll have to see how the price action develops, but you can see I secured around $23,000 in profit, and my unrealized P&L is over $130,000. This was all shared in my free premium group. You can see that on November 7th, just entered a Bitcoin long here at 99.7K with the assumption that a potential higher low could be forming. I had a pretty tight invalidation, and I also had that hard stop loss, which was shared with the members. Remember, if you want to join me and see how I am personally trading the market, you have the first link in my description down below. This will bring you to my free Telegram group. You DM me the word premium, and I would be happy to onboard you into my free premium group. The only requirement is to sign up with one of my affiliate exchange links and start trading on there. Shameless shill there, because we really caught a fantastic move on Bitcoin. And you can see that this trade is looking absolutely phenomenal, as I also continue to hold on to my Bitcoin dominance trade. So what is next in this market? Was that the low? Bitcoin is above $106,000, and we got a pretty big move up after the weekly close. Right now on the charts, we can observe that the weekly close was indeed above that 50-week moving average. Operation save the weekly close. We closed right around 104.5K, and of course, we're starting off the week with a little bit of a pump here. And just to remind you why this level is so important, which is the green line on the chart, every single time that we lost the bull market support band over the course of this bull market, we managed to hold on to the 50-week simple moving average and then bouncing much higher. If we were gonna bounce, it would be from this zone. That's why over the past few days, I was more bullish than most, even when Bitcoin dropped below $100,000, because from a risk to reward perspective, the sentiment was at all-time lows. This was the key invalidation zone. So if we were to bounce, it would have been from this level. Now, you'll remember that the level that I outlined was actually all the way down to $98,000. If we start to lose that level, again, to repeat myself, on a weekly time frame basis, that is when I would look to pivot my trading strategy in this market. And you can see that we did indeed get a wick down there, and many people were calling for 80K Bitcoin and below for the bear market to start. But as I said, it's foolish to think that the bull market is over until we go ahead and get weekly closes below this level. And what's very positive in my opinion is that we managed to close above that 50-week simple moving average. Now there's a couple things that we need to pay attention to, because yes, there is a chance here that we can just simply continue to bounce here, and our next target zone is indeed the bull market support band, which is found right around $112,000. However, we cannot ignore the fact that we do have a CME gap. Now, if you watch my last video, you'll notice that this chart does need some adjusting, because Bitcoin was actually below $102,000 just yesterday, and I talked about the fact that we would likely fill the CME gap to the upside. You can see here, current price, 101.7K, CME gap, 104.1K. This time around, we actually opened right around here, and therefore it's highly likely that we go ahead and fill that CME gap even if we are to move higher out of here. This is a crucial period in the market, and there's a lot of work to be done if we are to go ahead and make new all-time highs. I have been a pretty big advocate for the last leg of this bull market cycle. We'll have to see how the price action develops, but the point is, from a risk to reward perspective, longing sub 100K was an excellent opportunity that I continue to share in my free premium group. Sometimes we won't go ahead and catch the perfect bottom, but sometimes we will, and when we do, trades start looking like this. If you're part of that group, you'll probably remember me also trying on the last attempt here, right around $100,000, and then I went ahead and got stopped out at break even. The thing is, it's okay to try and try again. I have to be honest with you guys, if we did manage to catch the Pico bottom on this most recent trade, and I managed to hold it as Bitcoin continues to crawl up from here, I will be absolutely unbearable to watch on the channel. If you take a look at some of my comments, the amount of bearishness down below over my past few videos when Bitcoin was flirting with the 100K level is absolutely insane. Just go ahead and have a look for yourself. Some of those comments are brutal. Anyways, the point is, Bitcoin is looking quite good, and we finally confirmed above this cluster, which is the 105K cluster that I was initially worried about. Now we are approaching a pivotal point. It is not time to celebrate quite yet. The reason I say this is because 107K has been crucial support for Bitcoin. And so if we test it from the underside here and we end up getting rejected, we may see a pretty sharp sell-off for Bitcoin. Just want to keep you aware of that. If we really zoom out here on the daily time frame, you can see what I'm talking about. This 107K zone was actually the pivot that went ahead and sent us to new all-time highs. If you've been watching the channel, you'll remember that I referenced it as the springboard towards those new all-time highs. Well, we are right at that zone right now. And so I would be actually pretty surprised if Bitcoin can go ahead and just blast through, because typically these kinds of zones can pose as support, but they can also pose as resistance. And right now we are just tapping into that zone. So let's see how it plays out. I do think that Bitcoin may struggle here, but the point is this could be the zone where we end up getting rejected into that CME gap to hopefully fill the CME gap and then go ahead and move higher. And as we're getting a little bit of a bounce, let's talk about James Wynn. He said he's all in. He said that he sold his entire crypto portfolio, and in the past few hours, he deployed all his stables and threw it at the top of his short positions. He's either going to make hundreds of millions from his leverage short, or he will go bust. Let's see how this plays out. This guy is usually a pretty good inverse signal in the market, similar to Kramer, and so I'm very curious to see if he will actually close his short positions on the slightest downtrend, just so he doesn't lose any more capital. Let's see. So why did we get this pump? Aside from the abysmal price action for Bitcoin, there's a couple of narratives floating around. First and foremost, President Trump did say that Americans will get at least a $2,000 dividend payment, excluding high-income earners. And if you remember what happened with those stimulus checks, the market absolutely soared. Perhaps we're trying to front run this. Now, we also need to consider the fact that Saylor finally came out and said best to continue, likely meaning that he's going to be buying more Bitcoin, which will be announced today after I publish this video. And we need to consider that the Senate did advance a bill to end the US government shutdown, and Trump said ultimately that we are getting close to the shutdown being over. Now, is this just going to be a pump that ends up fading much, much lower? Because we have seen this with these kind of Sunday pumps for Bitcoin. We go ahead, get an explosive move higher, and then we end up retracing. If we're going to reject, it would actually be around the zone that we're currently at. So keep your eyes on that level. And if you did manage to enter a Bitcoin long around the lows when everyone was bearish, as we did in my free premium group, then it may be wise to start taking some profits around here. You can see on my trade that I did secure around 20% profits, which was also shared in the group. But right now, I just want to see how the price action develops. Of course, it would be absolutely epic if this just ends up ripping to all-time highs, but I have to say the market likely has something else in store for us. There's going to be a lot of fuckery in the short term here. Now, I also wanted to discuss the liquidity maps, because you can see that on the 24-hour time frame, we do have liquidity to both sides, although from the long perspective, it is starting to pile up. Let's take a look at the 48-hour time frame, and you can see that there is a pretty good cluster just below $108,000, but most people have tried to go long at this point in time. On the 1 week time frame, let's see if it paints a little bit of a different picture. No, a lot of long liquidation to be grabbed. One thing to consider though, on the 30-day time frame, in terms of this Bitcoin exchange liquidation map, there are still more cumulative short liquidation leverage in the market compared to cumulative long liquidation leverage in the market, which in my opinion is ultimately positive. That being said though, on the 7-day time frame, more longs. On the 1-day time frame, more longs. So perhaps it's time to be a little bit cautious after this relief rally. Outside of the liquidity maps, the thing that we do need to consider here is that if this really is the move that sets us up to go much, much higher, there will likely be only shallow pullbacks. And by shallow pullbacks, I mean likely to go ahead and fill the CME gap and then going ahead and moving higher out of here. So if this really is bullish, the market probably won't give some entries down below here once more, and Bitcoin would just continue to rip higher. Let's see how it plays out. I am now positioned. I hope a lot of you are also positioned based on my videos, based on my premium group. The point is, we were vocally bullish at the bottom. Maybe this is just a little bit of a relief rally, but we're making some significant profits longing when everyone else was scared. Now, remember, if you want to trade the market with me, you do have the second link in my description down below. It brings you directly to Bluffin, and they actually have a fantastic bonus where you can get $500 completely for free for trading, and it's limited to the first 100 users. That is a 20% trading bonus cashback. Second link in my description down below. Now, I also wanted to take a look at the ETFs because you can see that on Friday, we saw some significant outflows once more, around $500 million. This is ultimately when I went ahead and went long. Hopefully, we start to see the ETF inflows starting to pile up and we get some positive numbers this week. But there is indeed one last thing that I want you to understand. We've got 4 days until CPI. The narrative leading into it will shape what comes next, another local top or another local bottom. This guy has been pretty spot on, and I've really liked his analysis on X, but the point is, typically going into CPI, if we're dumping, we end up forming that local low and then we go ahead and move higher. If we're pumping, it's important to be a little bit careful because we can go ahead and roll over after CPI has concluded. And now that we're seeing some news that the government shutdown may be ending sooner than most people are expecting, perhaps we do go ahead and get this CPI data and it leads to our next big move in this market. I'll of course make sure to keep you updated as the price action develops. You need to be cautious around these events. And as we wrap up this video, taking a look at Bitcoin once more, we are now back below $106,000. I'm not getting super excited quite yet. We want to reclaim 107K. We're at a crucial pivot zone in the market. I was always expecting a bounce from this level, but 107 is really going to be an important level to break and hold above if we are to see more continuation towards the bull market support band. Confirm above the bull market support band, which finds itself right here between $110,000 to $113,000. And at that point in time, I would be willing to say that yes, all-time highs are imminent. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves. We need to confirm above 107 first. And that sums up today's video. Despite the fact that everyone was extremely bearish when Bitcoin was sub 100K, we managed to catch an absolutely epic trade. Now, will this be the swing long to take us to new all-time highs? Only time will tell. The point is, we're approaching a very critical zone right around $107,000. If we can confirm above there, I do think that Bitcoin is going ahead and moving higher, despite the fact that we do have the CME gap below, which is highly likely that we tap into, and we're seeing more and more longs enter the market. Perhaps what ends up happening is we get rejected right around 107, we come back down to fill that CME gap, and then we go ahead and move higher from there. Let's see what the price action gives us. Ultimately, no one is a fortune teller, but I just trade the market looking for the best risk to reward setups, and sub 100K was the best opportunity to go long. If you enjoyed the content, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe. Remember, I have a leverage trading tutorial right here, and I'll see you in tomorrow's video.